everybody. How are you today? It's so nice to see everybody's faces. Thanks for joining us today. I am Sandy Peffer. I am Chair of Women United of Greater Philadelphia and Southern New Jersey, and I am joined by my lovely co-chair, Justine Sloyer. And again, I just want to welcome you for joining us today for our spring event in celebration of Women's History Month. At Women United, our mission is to empower women and girls to build strong and independent lives from cradle to career. Our affinity group helps to support poverty fighting initiatives in each of United Way's core focus areas, which include early education, workforce development, and financial stability. This year, we've been working closely with some amazing organizations, the VITA program, BankWorks, Girls Inc. of Greater Philadelphia and Southern New Jersey, the Tri-County YWCA in Pottstown, and Urban Promise in Camden. And if you have not checked any of those out, I highly encourage you to go check them out because they are doing some amazing work. We host quarterly social and volunteer events so members and supporters can have hands-on experience with our agency partners and ways to stay engaged and connected. For now, all these events are virtual, as you would imagine. In the future, we really are looking forward to these events being back in person. Justine?
Thanks, Sandy. So I'm Justine Sloyer. Thank you for so many of you taking the time in your busy lives to join us, as well as amazing partners tonight. And happy History Month. We'd like to thank all of you for being with us today, and especially those who have made a contribution to our Women United Impact Fund. It's because of your generosity that we're able to continue to fight our region's journey to end intergenerational poverty. For those who would like to make a donation now to help initiatives that support women and girls in our community, feel free to text "no barriers," no space by the way, to 41444, and your gift of any amount makes a difference and is greatly appreciated. But for those who do want to get involved with our overall mission here at Women United, which you'll learn more about later on today, feel free to connect with us via Women United at unitedforimpact.org or visit our website. And thank you to our presenting sponsor, Holman Enterprises, as well as our corporate sponsor, Morgan Lewis. We'd like to thank our contributing sponsors as well, French Toast Bites, U Body Care, as well as Sam Fronterni Hospitality. For this evening, we're really excited to hear from our amazing guest panelists. I hope you are as well as our trailblazers in our following community. Sandy, to wrap it up.
Yes, very orchestrated. Please note that all of you attendees are muted to improve the sound quality. If you do have a question, please enter it in the chat box below, or the chat box, where however it's showing up on your Zoom screen. We'll take all questions at the end. We're also recording today's event, and we'll send you out a link following our time together. If you would like to stick around after our program, we invite you to mingle with our Women United members and ask any questions you may have. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our moderator for the event, Sarah Bouchard. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Sandy, and welcome everyone. I always get very hopeful on Thursday evenings, so I think we were calling it Friday Eve. And I have the distinct pleasure to represent Morgan Lewis, a corporate sponsor of today's celebration and this important event that honors the achievement of some really significant women leaders in Philadelphia. At Morgan Lewis, I serve as the office managing partner of the Philadelphia office, and I'm a partner in the Labor and Employment Group. And with that, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. Charisse McGill, owner and producer of Local Artisan Foods. Chef Marcy Turney and Valerie Saffron, entrepreneurs and pioneers in helping transform Philadelphia's 13th Street. And Rakia Reynolds, founder and CEO of Sky Blue Media. So welcome, ladies. So interested to hear your stories. So what we're going to do is a few questions, and I'd like you all to answer them if you could. So I understand that all of you grew up outside of Philadelphia, and that 3 of the 4 of you attended Temple. But all of you got started out and grew businesses here. What made you stay? And what would you say the biggest myth or misconception is about starting a business in Philly? So, Rakia, do you want to start us off?
I knew you were going to do that. I felt it. I felt it, and I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I think it's helpful to understand a little bit of my background. When I went to Temple, I stayed at Temple afterwards to work in higher education for quite some time, as I was actually pursuing a degree in counseling psychology. And then I left to become a TV producer to work for MTV, TLC, and Discovery Health. I came back to Philadelphia because this is where I felt like my roots were incubated, and this is where I was going to grow. I also got married here in Philadelphia. I'm not in Philadelphia right now, but my office is still there. Got married in Philadelphia, had children in Philadelphia. So, there was a lot of love there. I think the misconception about starting a business anywhere is that it was going to be easier in Philadelphia. And I think anywhere that you start a business as an entrepreneur, it's going to have its own set of challenges. But what Philadelphia did do for me was it connected the dots. I felt like along my journey, I was collecting all of these dots and meeting great people, great associates, sort of building along the way. But building my business and launching a business here was really the dot connector that solidified why I should have a presence in Philadelphia and why I should grow my businesses and my brands in the city.
Thanks so much. We're so glad you're here. So Charisse, what about you?
Kind of like Rakia, I graduated Temple in 2003. I'm from Pittsburgh. So when I came to Philadelphia in 1999, I just kind of never looked back. I grew my professional career here, having held positions at the Sixers, the Phillies, the Flyers for a bit, the Atlantic 10 Conference. So I was very ingrained in the sport culture here in Philly pretty early on. So I just kind of stayed and navigated my way through. One of the myths I would say about starting and growing a business in Philly, I know like Philly fans and Philly customers have like a bad rep. Like we booed Santa back in the 60s. Beyonce got booed at the 2001 76ers playoff game. There was batteries thrown at a Phillies game. Philly is a tough crowd. So I launched my business in 2018 in front of City Hall at Christmas Village with no test market, no focus group. I said, I'm going to let Philly tell me if these French toast bites are good. And they did. So I said, if Philly likes these bites, the world is going to like these bites. So I didn't have those same experiences with Philly fans, because Philly will give you a chance. I will say that, this isn't my first entrepreneurial stint, and Philly has been behind each and every one of them. This is the most public facing one that I've had in Philly. As a network of restaurant owners and restaurateurs have all been very supportive, and our customer base is loyal. I love it. So a big myth buster is the Philly fans aren't so bad.
Well, I think it's just that your food is great, because I think they would definitely tell you if it wasn't.
Listen, I'll take the win. I'll take the win. But if they like you, they love you, and you're golden. And
Right.
that's what I learned. I don't want to be on the other side of that.
Okay. So Marcy and Valerie, you are in the same Zoom bubble, but you're not the same person. So I would like you each to tell us.
Yeah, so I went to Temple as well. I grew up in the Poconos, and I was drawn to Philadelphia. I played field hockey. I was on athletic scholarship. But when I came to Philly and all the grit and all the excitement, I was like, from the Poconos in the woods, I'm like, this is where I want to go. So I went to Temple, and I was there for graphic design. And I always tell the story to all of my cooks how old I am, because my sophomore year, we go back and there's computers everywhere. And I had no interest in doing that. Then I met Val, and we met in a restaurant, and I, after school, became, went to culinary school, became a chef. We met in a restaurant near 13th Street. And the first business we opened was her dream. It was Open House. And then back
Which is
then,
a retail store on 13th Street.
right. And that was how many years ago?
2002.
Right. So
19.
2002, 13th Street was not pretty at all. But we had a little dream. She had a dream, and I was still a chef for someone else. And then we just loved this area. And then it was my turn for my dream. And so my dream was Lolita BYOB, a year later. And for us, Philadelphia, we were having these little businesses, two little dreams on the street, wondering, is anyone going to come? Is anyone going to come? And the great thing about Philadelphia is just the people that support you, the neighbors, the business folks. And so that was, they kind of gave us the fuel to keep going. I think the myth is, that it isn't easy. We're in the restaurant business. So when I hear people who, I want to open a restaurant. Are you sure you want to open a restaurant? You're a lawyer and you are a doctor and you think it's like all, rainbows over here. It's not. So if you are going to open a business, you have to be super passionate about what you're doing.
There's no
And-
myth. You just have to work your ass off.
Yeah.
Every day, cry at 5 o'clock, go to bed at 10 o'clock and wake up.
Right.
It happened to us yesterday. It's happening as we speak. I've got my eye on what's happening because for us, we just started again. COVID makes you start from scratch and you have to build right back up. So we're back in the trenches.
And for the whole Philadelphia, I like to always say, we're very passionate in Philadelphia. The Philadelphians are very passionate. So you do
Yes.
want to be on that right side of them,
Yeah,
because they will make you or break you sometimes.
they will.
Thanks for that. Val, anything else you'd like to add before we go to our next question?
No myths, just hard work.
Yeah.
That is literally the key to business.
All right, well, Val, you're not off the hook because we're going to start with you for our second question. So, I think we were talking a little bit about COVID and how challenging it can be, particularly in the hospitality industry and with startups and even with established companies and law firms. It really demands all of us to really think outside the box. What would you say are some of the biggest pivots you were forced to make? And perhaps some, things that were real wins and real transformation as a result of COVID?
Who's up?
Is it Val?
Val, you're up.
I mean, it's pivot. COVID, we're in retail and we're in restaurants and, everything has changed. Ultimately, I think it's made us better and stronger. So when we do actually return to some normal kind of life, we'll be even stronger. In retail, we were not online. Now we're online. We didn't have curbside pickup. Now we do. And even our product is changing, how we order, everything has changed. And I did not want to change, but we had no sales. So, we were either going to sink or we were going to change. So we're still figuring that on the retail side. On the restaurant side, Barbuzzo never did takeout. Now we do takeout. Outdoor dining, things like the streetery structures that we've had built outside our restaurants, that's something that forced the city to change. The city is listening to us big time because they know if they don't adapt, they can't make this like a 5-year, period to try to adapt. So I think we've pushed forward in using public and outdoor spaces in a way that will change us forever. That would have never actually happened. So as much as there are moments where we literally cry because it's just so hard, everything is hard, hiring is hard, everything's hard. When we get to the other side, and we're not there yet, we will be better for it in some ways. So, but this is not a time to like, you can't be down in the dumps for too long because the world is moving and you have to catch up. So I think that's how we, wake up every day.
Yeah, there's no room for ego
No,
with COVID. You need to give the customer what they
Yeah.
want, figure out what it is, and
just
yeah.
pay your rent. And then for us, it's like, all right, in a year, maybe we get to do more of what we want in a day. Right now, it's not what we want to do. It's just have a staff, pay your bills, and get to tomorrow. That's it. So that's the mode we're in, which I think we thrive in because we're like worker bees. We work. And for us, it's a balancing game because, we can't work 24/7. We have to go pick up our 2-year-old at, 6:30 from our family member right now because she's covering us. So it's a whole different world of adjusting, but we'll do it.
Well, it sounds like you both have done it so well, and we're the better for it. So we're glad you're open, and thank you. Charisse, what about you? How have you had to pivot, and any unexpected wins that you've seen?
Oh, for sure. Sarah, my whole business was built off of the open air food market economy. Like I said, I launched at Christmas Village. That's an open air market. So from preparation to packaging, my food is designed to be eaten outside while you're at a concert, right, at a festival. 2019, we did every big show there is to do in this town, from Roots Picnic, Made in America, 4th of July. We did everything. 2020, I thought we were going to be going to Coachella. I applied to Coachella. I was like, we're doing all the big concerts. And then the world shut down and I panicked and I was like, what am I going to do? But I know resigning from my day job wasn't in vain. I know going back to St. Joe's to get an MBA in food marketing was not going to be in vain. I was going to make this work some kind of way. So I just pulled out a case study from textbook, form strategic partnerships, quickly respond to a changing marketplace, maintain brand identity. Simple. So the day that Mayor Kinney announced that there would be no more events until February 2021, which seemed like ages, I got a call from the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation. They said, we have a space for you at Spruce Street Hubbard Park if you're interested. I was like, before I can hang up the phone, I was already moved my deep fryers in there. Like, yes, I'm back outside. I'm with the people. We're serving them up. Well, that caused so much media because I was the first Black woman to own and operate a food establishment at the popular tourist attraction in its 6-year history. Caught a lot of attention. Of that attention came GoPuff, came a beer deal. So I became the first Black woman in the state to have a signature brew. And that was a collaboration we had with Doylestown Brewing Company because he saw me on the news and he said, I can turn your French toast bites into a beer. So I shot up to Doylestown, I shot up to Doylestown with my French toast bites and my spice. And he said, we can make a beer. 6 weeks later, we had a beer. GoPuff came to Spruce Street because they saw me on the news, had the bites. They said, how can we get this on our platform? I was like, well, it's only hot. He said, well, we'll be delivering hot soon. I was like, well, call me. I was like, but I do have a beer. They committed to buying half of the first batch and the second batch. So now I'm being delivered in people's homes. From that, a coffee deal came as a collaboration with Bean to Bean. So we have a French toast coffee now. So now I'm just finding myself in these places that are deemed essential, which is alcohol and grocery, and not relying as much on the made to order open air market French toast bites. But we've developed our relationship with Delaware River. So now we're at both Cherry Street Pier and Spruce Street Hubbard Park, which is huge, and Christmas Village is a go. So those are the kind of events that define us. But what helped me through the pandemic was segments going into these other segments of the industry, the pantry. Now we're in people's homes, and that was exciting. And we had to turn to delivery. So now you're getting the street food delivered. We formed a great partnership with DoorDash that became a national ambassador for them because the uniqueness of the business, being a mobile food, festival food business, now that's having to get clamshells and bags and staplers and anti-tampering stuff for the bite. So it was just a change. And most of those changes are long-term. Like the beer's not going anywhere. Yards just picked us up because my other brewer can meet demand. So the Yards beer comes out May 1st. So that's the still things that are growing, getting us through, because I don't think we're out the woods just yet.
So this is amazing. It's going to be like when pumpkin spice, that comes when, like September, October.
Yes.
When does French toast, beer, and coffee?
It's an anytime. It's an anytime ale. It's all the time. It's in stores now. I didn't want to do a dessert beer because I kind of think you're one and done with a dessert beer. So I want people to keep throwing them back. So we just made it an ale.
I love that.
But those were the
Anytime
pivots
ale.
that I had to do. I had to react quickly. I quit my job for this. I went back to school for this. So I had to make it work. It wasn't going to be in vain.
Rakia, what about you?
I love that. I'm just over here just smiling ear to ear right now.
I know, isn't
and
this amazing?
I know. I want an anytime ale. I would say, I love hearing what Marcy, Valerie, and Sharice did in terms of pivoting during the pandemic. I think for me, my business is quite different. I'm not in the retail or restaurant business. I own a multimedia communications agency. So we had always been positioned, my team had been working from the office 4 days a week and working remotely 1 day a week. We have been using Zoom for quite some time because we specialize in equity and communications, and we represent deaf and hard of hearing communities. So we were using Zoom from a technological standpoint to communicate with some of our deaf and hard of hearing communities. So the thing that was sort of a challenge for us, I come from the space of crisis communications, and as you can imagine, all of the challenges that the pandemic brought about. And then this summer, when racism was broadcasted to a much larger audience, we had to get in gear, and everything that we did was a crisis comms call. Everything that we did was some form of urgent care communications. We also specialize in developing the lexicon of the future for a lot of corporations. So what are you saying? How are you saying it? In which medium are you communicating it to? It also felt like the pivot was that every phone call defaulted to a Zoom call. So now all of our clients, instead of just a weekly touch base by phone, we are on Zoom. I'd say the challenges have really been that my team is exhausted. They are exhausted. And so what we've been challenged with is this inundation of work and compounded stress. So all of the external factors that we have to deal with, when a lot of folks get to turn off the news, or they get to shut their laptops or turn their phones over because they're tired of the media. That is what our business is. We have to constantly consume media when it is also uncomfortable. We have to get into conversations when it is quite uncomfortable. One of our clients is the co-creator of the Black Lives Matter movement. So when people are seeing these people on air having all of these discussions, we're behind the scenes formulating messages and ensuring that our clients are protected. So we have a client roster of about 30 people, products, or places that we represent, and we have a team of 32. So people are tired. The people are tired. So what I've tried to do is, last year I brought on a full-time therapist for the staff that I have on retainer to offer therapy for my team, so that they have someone to talk to. I am a fan of staying in my lane. And when I got to the point where I felt like I was counseling or trying to give people pieces of advice, I said, hey, here's my therapist. And I know we talk every Friday, but can I hire you for the entire team? And so she carved out her schedule, and now we have therapy for the entire team. We've altered our benefits packages, just making sure that people have what they need. In addition to health benefits and medical benefits and vision, we now offer tech as a package. Working at Sky Blue Media, you get a laptop, you get a phone, you get a webcam. So we've had to increase things on our side that as a business owner, I've had to make deep investments in, but I am hopeful that in the long run, it will streamline the things that we do, and it will make us better and more effective communicators across the board.
What a wonderful thing you did for your employee population. I have to imagine that built so much loyalty, just gave everyone a breath of relief and is making them more productive too. What a great idea. I saw lots of hearts on this Zoom call. Really, really
I'm getting ready to
wonderful stuff.
put my application in to work with you.
I know.
Just for the therapist part.
It's amazing. Okay, so our last question before we get to the audience. You know, we always wish we had the perspective and maturity that we have now and may have later when we were much younger, right? So what would you advise your younger self or an emerging business leader or aspiring entrepreneur that can be applied to them today? And let's start with Marcy and Val.
I would say for us, or for me, I shouldn't speak for you. For me, we were so going for so many years, and we always were like, and then we'll have this time to have children to do that. And I'm 50, and how old are you? 45. We have a 2-year-old, and who's adopted, and we're live right now for another adoption. And I wish we would have started, 7 years earlier. I wanted to establish the businesses and be comfortable and all that. But I feel like I'm happy that we became parents later because we're very chill. We're not helicopter parents. But I wish we would have carved out some time earlier.
I think on the business side of things, for somebody just starting out, the world is different from when we started. They have social media. So, say it's somebody who wants to start a food business, the opportunity is there to communicate what you want to do. So even if it just starts with your family, to kind of take those risks, I think that's the first thing. They have that opportunity to do that, even if it's, let me go talk to my friend who is the chef at this restaurant. Maybe I can use their place on a Monday night to try out whatever kind of food they want to do, just to get a reaction, because half the time you fail. So that's a baby step. And I think, on the other side of it, if you're not ready for whatever your thing is go find who do you respect and who's successful in what they do. Go try and get a job with them and commit to a couple of years to see what are they doing that's working. And what can I learn from that? And just be open to what can I learn from somebody who's kind of from those old birds, because they're still around. And then I'm going to go try and do my thing at some point in life.
Really great advice. Thank you. Rakia, what would you tell your younger self or someone who's asking you for advice?
Yeah, I would say both. I like what you all were saying. I'd say one of my sort of obstacles or challenges as a younger entrepreneur was that I'm a kinetic individual. I like to move around, but that then turned into being frenetic, oh my gosh, I've got to do this and I've got to do it now. And if I don't do it now, then the time is going to pass. And that becomes making impulsive decisions. And I think when I was quite early on, I made impulsive decisions in determining the people who were going to be around me instead of waiting and being still. So something that I value now as a more mature adult, as I like to say, because I'm also in my 40s. And so I love that you all are talking about your age, because it makes me more comfortable to talk about my age. So now I'm in my 40s with 3 children and I'm a wife, and I see things in my children that I'm like, if someone would have just said to me as a young adult and as a young entrepreneur, be still, just be still, take it in while it's here, pay attention to everything around you. This is not a race. This is something that will be inevitable for you. I think if I'd have known, early on, this is inevitable, it's going to happen, I wouldn't have raced so much, and I may have taken my time. Now, I am proud of the growth that my company has made over the past decade. I'm celebrating 10 years in business, and I've started several other companies as a result of my sort of kinetic movements. But it does take a toll on folks when you're moving all of the time and you don't take time to be still.
You know, from the therapist to just taking a moment to be chill. I'm not sure what profession you're in, Rakia. I think you can toggle in both. So Charisse, I'm really craving that French toast beer right now. It's on my mind.
Right?
But what advice would you give either your younger self or someone who came to you with questions?
Sure. When I speak like the college students, I always tell them, and this is true, that Drake is one of my favorite rappers. And in one of his early songs, he says, "Do right and kill everything." And that's kind of been my mantra. Like, I don't really set goals because I find them to be a little bit limiting. So if I just maximize off every opportunity, something better is going to come. And that's been happening for like the past decade. So that's what I tell the youth when I talk to them about this do right and kill everything. But really, my 3 real pieces of advice is you have to be realistic and honest with yourself about what business that you're actually in. So for me, as much as I thought I was in the food business, COVID showed me I was in the people business more so than the food business. And COVID proved it when I couldn't go outside to serve my food to people like anymore. So I really had to understand what business I'm in. The whole time I thought I was in the food business, I was actually in the people business. I just happened to serve food. So that's the first piece of advice: know what business that you're in. The second is relationships are more valuable than money. And that's just something else that COVID really, I always thought that and I always believed it, but it came into practice over the past 12 months. You know, relationships are more valuable than money. And Philly is like the 6th largest market, but it's really a small town. So you have to build these relationships and have a good reputation for sure. And my third piece of advice would be to know the difference between what you make and what you sell. Like, I make French toast, but that's not what I'm selling. By the time you get to me, you pass Burger King, you get $3 for $1 there. You pass IHOP, their Rudy Tooty French toast is $8.49, and they serve you. There's a reason why people come to me, stand in line for 30 minutes, take a picture before they take a bite. And that's what I'm selling.
Yeah, you're selling an experience. That's great.
Yes. So that would be my 3 pieces of advice. And I tell all the kids, do right and kill everything. Just kill it.
So who in Philly is on your wish list for your next collaboration or business venture, Charisse?
I'll put it out there because I believe in exercising your ask muscle. So I really want to get the French Toast Bites ice cream going off. I had a couple conversations with Bassett's, but I think Reckley's or Milk John is on my hit list for the French Toast
ice cream?
Yes.
Oh, that
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Reckley's is on my list, but Milk John's a little bit more in line of what we do. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh my goodness. I'm buying it.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a little bit of a question about being women-owned and minority businesses. You know, we hear that it can be very challenging to access capital, resources. Has it been difficult for you? What have the challenges been and how did you overcome them? And just throwing it out to any of our panelists here.
Sarah, I'll jump in. I did an article for the Business Journal a couple months back, and it was about funding that was received for COVID. And I had to be very honest. I think it was Laura Smith who did the interview. I had to be honest with her and said of the funding that we received, maybe 10% was COVID direct related, but most of it came after the uprisings in the summertime, when these grants became specific to women and specific to minority-owned businesses. That's when the flood of funding came in after the uprising. So at that last straw with George Floyd, we had a lot of funding come through. And I just had to be honest with that because she wanted to position it as like COVID relief funding, and it wasn't COVID relief funding. It wasn't. It was another pandemic that we're fighting, racism in this country. So that is what kind of helped us. But prior, like nothing changed. My business model didn't change. The people who work there didn't change. Nothing changed. But now all of a sudden, we have access to capital. All of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a recent start of awareness, nowhere near where it needs to be. But it is good to see that it's percolating and that there's a start of the awareness and that people are having really honest discussions about what it means in our country.
Yeah, and I can quick chime in on that. I think, what I've seen in my, sort of entire history as an entrepreneur is just the inequities to the lack of access to capital in all spaces. And for me, it's quite challenging because I'm behind the scenes advising a lot of tech startups who typically are white men, and I'm building their messages and saying, this is what you should say, this is how you go in and pitch, and this is how we can collectively or help your company raise 5 million or 100 million. I sit in capacities where I build a lot of boards. So I'm sitting in rooms where, I'm advising the board members who have raised $125 million in the course of a year or 2 years. And for myself, as someone who I've never raised any capital for my business, it was always brick by brick. And after about 5 or 6 years in the business, I gained, some sort of accolades where people were approaching me to acquire my business. So I then had the very large agencies reaching out to me to acquire, my teeny tiny business. And at that point, it was no one had given me any kind of loan. I couldn't even get a line of credit, 4 years in business. And I have large clients. I mean, my clients are Airbnb, Morgan Stanley, SoftBank. I represent one of the largest banks in the world, one of the largest banks in the country. Serena Williams is my client. So if you represent, M. Night Shyamalan is a client. So if you represent the greatest of greats of all time, and people were still saying, oh, well, we don't know if we can give you a line of credit, that was really telling. But I could then be behind the scenes helping these major corporations and companies and tech startups raise all of this capital. I have to be honest with everyone on this Zoom, when it became a little more accessible, and maybe this was an ego thing, when it became a little more accessible to gain the capital or to make other deals, I actually said no. I've done it this long by myself. I don't want it right now, unless I'm building something else. Now, I won't say no to everything. I mean, I'm not silly, but I'm building another business as a result of my work at Sky Blue Media, where I am going to raise capital, but I'm going to do it on my own terms and in my own way. But if you know the statistics of the inequities in all of these spaces, access to capital, the way that people, sort of have these implicit biases and the way that they judge companies, I had to lead with, I'm a Black woman and I also represent all of these people, instead of I'm a Black woman, my company is successful. We've made a lot of money over the course of a few years, and we don't need to. I mean, the growth in my agency from when I had started to maybe the 4 or 5 year mark, my accountant said, what are you doing? How do you go up 30%, 60%, 70%? This is unreal for a business. And when I had to prove myself. And I think for a lot of Black, brown, and there are additional businesses that have these inequities, for a lot of these businesses that face this, this summer and where we're going in 2021, it is challenging to see how things have changed as a result of like something traumatic, right? Like traumatic. So it's like, and so I think as we continue to move forward in 2021 and beyond, it's thoughtful to have conversations like this. It's also great to be educated on what the systemic problems come from, where it's rooted in, because it's not just, you know, a Sharice or a Marcy and a Val and a Rakia talking. There are so many businesses that need to be in rooms like this, and we're all successful businesses, but what about the businesses that haven't made their case studies? You know, Sharice, like you have all of this amazing media. Marcy and Val, you have this brand of redefining 13th Street. I sometimes get concerned when I had time to be concerned, thinking about the small businesses, because I also have 3 kids and a dog that's sitting right here who's like, talk to me. I'm, you know, concerned about the businesses that don't have what we have. Like, we are actually in a unique situation where we get invited to speak and do these things. There are some businesses that don't, so we should collectively hold our own selves accountable and responsible for opening up the doors for them as well.
Yeah.
Really, really good advice, for sure. So Marcy and Val, this may seem like a totally superficial question after we were having that discussion, but do you see in your restaurants a change in what people are eating, particularly as they want to eat outside more? And do you think that that will continue after most people are vaccinated? Do you think the trend of eating outside will be something that people will want to do more?
Oh, for sure. I mean, people were sitting out there in like 25-degree weather on with a winter coat. We were supposed to break ground at Love Park for that restaurant in March when COVID hit. And even that, you know, it's on hold, but how we're envisioning the outdoor space there is completely different from a year ago. Yeah. So certainly I think we're just open 365 days a year and people want to be outside. And, you know, I think as far as the food goes, we're still so deep in COVID that I think people are just like, they want the sheep's milk ricotta because they're maybe coming out for the first time because they're vaccinated. So, you know, they're craving, they haven't been to Barbuzzo in a year. So I think we're still kind of in that phase of they just want something familiar to comfort them.
Yeah,
at this
I
moment.
think it was more for the to-go side.
Yeah.
Is where we had to change and make sure all the food that we were selling to go traveled to your home properly. And that's where we kind of had to make adjustments. And then something as simple as people aren't really wanting to share right outside.
Right.
So simple things like that.
And even today, our pasta dishes, we said they need to be a little bit bigger portion size because that perfectly delicate ravioli that we would serve to you in a brown butter sauce in a to-go container doesn't translate.
Right.
So here's your spaghetti and meatballs for it.
You know what? Now I'm craving spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah. It's all about comfort food this past year.
Any other questions from the group? This is all making me super hungry. I saw someone with a glass of wine that looked good too.
No, it has to be French toast ale.
Thank you.
So we got a question. What's next for you all? Anything? We heard from Sharice about the ice cream. Rakia?
Mine is nerdy, and I feel so boring compared to you amazing women. Sharice is talking about ice cream. I'm like, oh my gosh. Marcy and Val are talking about meatballs. For me, because I've worked in this space so much around language, I'm actually getting into the space of working on combating what we're doing in the world of artificial intelligence. So I think artificial intelligence has, you know, definitely enabled us to do more. It's made us work smarter, faster, and better. It, you know, Google, once you get to a point where you're writing an email and Google can finish your sentence for you, okay, we have made it. We are definitely in the future. But what I think the challenge is it's taken the thought out of the way that we communicate with one another. So I am now building an ethical intelligence platform that will enable us to be a little more thoughtful as we speak. So we've been piloting some of this work over the past year. And we just received our first angel investment. So I will be building that for the next 6 months and hopefully become an MVP, a viable product in the next 6 to 8 months. And then we'll see what happens in the world of language and communications.
You know, that's such an interesting area of ethics because, you know, I know companies often use that type of technology to weed through thousands of resumes and things like that. But, you know, that's been criticized for, you know, excluding people for certain reasons, either schools or language choices, and you don't get to know the person. You know, I understand there needs to be a means of how to, you know, condense all that information, but it can be very dangerous.
Right. Yeah, I
So-
mean, that's what artificial intelligence does. I mean, it puts systems and technology in place so that you don't have to weed through everything. But in the world of ethical intelligence, it will stop you and make you pause a little more in your tracks to say, did I say the right thing? And if I didn't say the right thing, how do I say it in a better way?
That's great. I think that that's very much needed, and I hope to see you on the forefront of that. That's really great. So there's a question from the group again about the ice cream, Charisse. Did you attempt to collaborate with Jack and Jill?
No, and I should, because we have a French toast milkshake and we use Jack and Jill ice cream as the base. So that's a no-brainer. I should. So I have to write that down.
You're getting good business advice from this
For
group
sure.
here. That's funny. And in terms of what we all should be doing, I mean, the United Way is doing so much to address systemic poverty. What should we be doing in your view, anyone on the panel, in terms of just every day? How should we be looking at these issues? I broke up a little bit. It's a big question. You know, how do you solve it, or how do you get like a little dent into it?
I mean, for us, I think there's been some opportunity. You know, Marcy does almost daily meals now. You want to talk about that real quick?
I have a friend, Abby Stern, who started for Food Forward, and she started working with Broad Street Ministry, and they were looking for restaurants and Broad Street Ministry to collaborate and provide meals for the food insecure in Philadelphia. And then you're able to kind of, you know, have your staff do these meals and you get a small amount per meal. And they've gotten sponsors for this. So we started, I was just looking because we're almost at our 5,000 meal that we're doing next week. But it's really helped. It's, you know, it was just a win-win. It helped for us. We have a restaurant, Little Nona's, that's been closed for over 2 weeks because of a random pipe out in the sidewalk, and we've been closed. And I'm just trying to keep these people on staff going, you know, hourly people.
Right.
I don't want them not to get 20 of their 40 hours, you know?
Right. We're probably, pre-COVID, we were at 300 employees. Right now, we're at about 100. So, and we're probably only at about 40% of sales overall. So
there was just an opportunity
Yeah.
that helps out both, but I've seen a lot of that, people doing, you know, taking donations, $5 from someone, but putting it towards a restaurant that can do meals for food insecure in Philadelphia. That's, you know, we've been doing that.
That is so impressive. I can't believe 5,000 meals with everything else you have on your plate. So
Pretty
really-
crazy. I mean, it's like we do them in shifts of 165 between three of our four restaurants. And it's a good team building for my team because each restaurant, there's a group of like 3 to 4 that will come in, put these meals together. We deliver them up to Broad Street Ministry. So they're, feeling a part of this as well.
That's amazing. Rakia or Charisse, any ideas on how to make a dent in poverty in Philly?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a,
I know it's a big question.
it's a big question. I mean, I love questions like that, but I do think that, we need critical thinkers to solve some of America's most critical problems. So it's not just, obviously in Philadelphia, but there's a long road of critical thinking that needs to be had in terms of combating low income, socioeconomic inequities and challenges, and also the poverty that we experience in Philadelphia. In terms of reading reports, and I sit on a lot of task force, and I mentioned in the beginning that I build, boards. It's a conversation that comes up time and time again. And I would have to say to you, I have no idea what we can do in terms of making a dent, aside from getting some of America's most critical thinkers, researchers, problem solvers, and folks on a consistent basis to dedicate their time to solving some of America's most critical problems.
Right. I don't think we can just rely on the public sector. I think we need to collaborate with the public sector, but to get the best and the brightest to help the public sector and collaborate as a whole and not just rely on them. They're good, but they need us.
But yeah, we all need help. We have to do it.
We all need
together.
each other. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, I want to thank you all. You guys were such wonderful panelists. I have learned so much from you. You're all so successful, brave, courageous, and very busy. Very busy. So I am very grateful for you to be here today. And to show us how you can really thrive in some male-dominated industries is very inspirational and should encourage all of us on this call and beyond. So let's continue to uplift each other and support each other beyond this month. This is great to do for Women's History Month, but it's a daily thing that we all need to do. So if you haven't done so already, I hope everyone will consider making a donation now to Women United to continue its important mission to help serving women and girls. And as was relayed at the beginning, it's texting "no barriers" to 41444. And that's going to be in the chat function too. Yep. Liz typed that in, "no barriers" to 41444. And we'll close out the program with an original poem, Live United, penned by America's inaugural National Youth Poet Laureate, 22-year-old Amanda Gorman. The piece was inspired by the United Way and is a reminder that when we live to give, we always live united.
It's hard to hope, hard to cope with crisis.
But while we might be all alone, we've never been more tightly tethered, because we'll only weather this unknown together. So we get to work, We mend, we don't break even when we bend. Somewhere, another mom pays her bills. Somewhere, another child eats his fill. We are the world's neighbors, making our communities brighter, greater, fighting for every person in the neighborhood. We, the coming of the common good, so dare to care, to be hope-sighted. We're never divided, for when we live to give, we always live united.